What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Hope you're doing well, feeling great, and enjoying freedom. It's a great day to have a great day. Today, I wanted to talk about silver, for the most part, maybe a little bit of gold as well, but I wanted to talk about utilizing the precious metals as an emergency fund and whether or not I think it's a good idea, and if so, how much should we have in our possession. We're going to get into it, but really quick, just in case you're new, make sure to subscribe for daily videos, subscribe to my second channel for weekly videos, go and get yourself some DYDSS merchandise to help support the channel in the biggest possible way. Come and join us in the Precious Metals VIP Club, which is where I do giveaways every single month. I have one going on right now. Join before April 1st if you want to get entered. Live streams multiple times a week. I will be going live tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Deal alerts on silver and gold. You can watch all my videos early and commercial free, and there are a ton of other perks as well. And of course, last but not least, make sure to go and get your 5 free stocks by downloading Webull and funding your account. Everything will be linked in the description. So today is Wednesday, March 30th, 2022. The current spot price of silver as I'm filming the video is $24.90. It's up 16 cents or up 0.65%. Nice green day for silver so far. And the spot price of gold is $19.30.70. It's up $10.70 or up 0.56%. Pretty decent green day for the beautiful yellow metal as well. And of course, the gold to silver ratio is in the 77-to-1 range. But again, that's as I'm filming the video at like 9:30 in the morning, not as I'm editing, posting, or as you're watching. So head on down to the comments and let me know the date and time you're viewing the video and what the current spot price is for you. I'm always curious. All right, so today I wanted to talk about utilizing the precious metals as an emergency fund, because something that I've been saying about the silver and gold for the last probably about 4 going on maybe even 4.5 years at this point is that I consider the silver and the gold to be a physical at-home savings account, something for the long term, something for years down the road, decades down the road, and for some of us who are stacking out there, generations down the road. That's all long term. That's all way down the line. It's a physical at-home savings account. But what about looking at it from the perspective of just an emergency fund? Putting your dollar bills into silver or maybe even into gold in the event of an emergency. Is that a good idea? My answer to that, for the short term, no, I don't believe it's that good of an idea. I personally would not rely on the silver or the gold for the short term. And that's not because of the precious metal, it's because of the spot price. Spot price is inconsistent. It's not that you're relying on the silver and gold, you're relying on the spot price. And when I say short term, I'm talking about things that can just happen today on your way to work or next week, next month, or sometime during this year. That's what I mean by short term. Little micro situations that could happen. Maybe you get into a minor car accident. Now you got to pay for some car repairs, or maybe you get sick or you get injured and you have to take care of that. That's what I'm talking about when it comes to an emergency fund. I personally would not rely on spot price for some form of an emergency fund. That's putting all your eggs in one basket, and I don't think that's really the greatest idea. I think cash is best for that. And that's coming from the perspective of someone that hates currency. And by the way, a little bit later in the video, I'm actually going to be referencing a couple of different prepping products and even some stacking supplies that would really come in handy in the event of an emergency, and it would prevent you from having to dip into the cash so you don't have to pay for it. You have it ahead of time. As I always say, as I've been saying for the longest time, all Amazon affiliate links will be in the description. All of the stacking supplies that I use, all of the prepping products that I use, they're all right there in the description, and unfortunately, I'm removing all of those links at the end of the month, so you only have 1 day left to use them. You only have 1 day left to get those products. Get them while you can. But hypothetically, let's just say you want to save up just enough money, or should I say currency, to have more than the average American has in their possession. How much would you need, you might be wondering? $1,000, $2,000 maybe? Nope. According to Forbes, all you would need is $500. The average American has less than $500 in savings, as horrifying as that is to think about. And by the way, I'm not going to sit here and act pretentious as if I have $50,000 or $1 million set aside just in case. Absolutely not. But I like to believe that I have enough to keep myself afloat for a little while if my income were to somehow come to an abrupt halt. Now, I do believe there is a better number to shoot for when it comes to how many dollars you should really have set aside, which we'll get into in a moment. But when it comes to the silver, let's work with that $500 figure, since that's already more than what most Americans have saved up. And for the record, when I say most people have less than $500, that's not anything specific. It doesn't tell you how much the average American actually has. It could be $400, it could be $300, it could be $17 for all I know, which unfortunately wouldn't even surprise me at this point. But right now, with the spot price kind of hovering in that $25 an ounce range, as we saw today, spot price is $24.90. In recent weeks, we've seen $23, $24, $25, $26 an ounce silver. So let's just run with 25, a nice solid number. $25 an ounce. Right now, it would take about 20 ounces of silver to equate to $500 today, premiums excluded, of course. Premiums included would be closer to maybe, I don't know, 16, 17 ounces of silver, give or take. But here's the problem. Like I said before, spot price moves. Spot price is inconsistent. $500 worth of silver today is not the same as $500 worth of silver last year or $500 worth of silver next year. Spot price is constantly fluctuating, which is why I don't think it's all that great of an idea to be relying on the precious metals as an emergency fund. In fact, my biggest video of all time, almost 200,000 views, was talking about how 25 ounces of silver could be a lifesaver during an emergency, because at the time I filmed that video, $500 worth of silver was about 25 ounces of silver. Right now, according to the spot price today as I'm filming this video, it's closer to 20 ounces of silver rather than 25. That's why it's not really a good idea to call a pile of silver X amount of dollars worth of silver. That's why I don't like saying it like that. I only did it in this video as an example to prove my point. Sure, spot price can go up, but it can also go down. So relying on silver for anything in the short term, to me, just isn't a great idea. But here's the thing. Oh, and also, by the way, if you're wondering about gold, we can call that about quarter ounce of gold. With the spot price of gold being in the $1,900 range, factor in a little bit of a premium, we could just call that $2,000. 1/4 of that, it's in the $500 range, just in case you were wondering. But getting back to the root of the video, I don't think relying on silver for any short-term emergency fund is that great of an idea. I think having a little bit of cash set aside is a better idea for the short term. I've always said that cash is for the short term. Actual money, silver and gold, that's for the long term. That's just what I believe. That's just my opinion. That's just my perspective. It's not financial advice. This is just me documenting what I do and what I believe. So when it comes to cash, when it comes to having however much cash you think you might need, unfortunately, there's not a rock solid number because it varies person to person. It depends on your income. It depends on your lifestyle. It depends on your expenses. It depends on how many people you're financially preparing for. Like, for example, I have a much easier time financially preparing and also just general preparing than most other people out there, because most other people out there, maybe they got a wife that they're prepping for as well, maybe they got a kid or 2 or 3 or 10 that they're prepping for as well. They're going to have a much more difficult time financially prepping or just general prepping than somebody like me, somebody that's only prepping for one guy, myself. So like I said, it varies person to person. It also varies when it comes to your lifestyle as well. Are you one person living in a 1-bedroom apartment? It's pretty cheap to do that. Or are you somebody that's renting or paying off a pretty big house? 3, 4, 5-bedroom house? It's probably a little bit more expensive than renting a little 1-bedroom apartment. When it comes to your car, maybe you have an older car that you paid in full to get, as opposed to taking care of a car loan, a car, or maybe some family SUV. Maybe that was $43,000, and maybe you're paying that off. So when it comes to your vehicle, that plays a role as well. How much food do you need to buy on a monthly basis? For me, it's pretty easy because I just shop for one guy. For somebody that has an entire family, it's a whole lot more expensive. Point being, all these little details, it plays a role in how much you should actually have set aside in cash. And I'm not even talking about the silver and gold just yet. We'll get back into the silver and gold in just one moment. But I personally believe the best way of going about calculating how much cash you should actually have set aside as an emergency fund, here's how you go about calculating that. You break down all of your monthly expenses, and I'm not talking about the luxuries. I'm not talking about the miscellaneous things that you don't really need to be paying for, like your Netflix account. It's not a necessity. I'm talking about how much cash you need to take care of making sure there's a roof over your head, food in the fridge, clothes on your back, and taking care of your car, your phone, insurance, things like that. Total all of that up, all of your monthly necessary to survive expenses, and then multiply that by 3. That's how much cash you should probably have. There are a lot of people out there who have always said that you should have a 1 to 3 month emergency fund. I would stick to 3. I wouldn't worry about 1 or 2 months. I would make sure you have 3 months worth of cash sitting there, locked up. I don't care where it is. You can keep it in a savings account, a checking account. You can keep it in a safe. You can keep it under your bed. It doesn't matter to me. Whatever you feel is the safest place to store it, keep it there. I personally use a safe, but that's just me. But here's the thing. Something that we learned about 2 years ago was that sometimes in life, weird things can happen, and as it turns out, we might need more than a 3-month emergency fund. We might need a 12-month emergency fund based on what we just saw happen in 2020. Took people about a year to actually get back on their feet after taking such financial punishment throughout the course of that year. I wouldn't go too crazy on that. I wouldn't say have a year's worth of expenses in cash just sitting there. Because guess what? Holding on to cash, sure, it has its pros in the event of any emergency. You grab the cash and you take care of what you need to take care of. But guess what? It has some cons as well, which we'll get into in 1 second as well. I just wanted to finish up this point. I would say 3 to 6 months is probably ideal. Total up all of your monthly expenses and multiply that by 3 to 6. I would say that's most ideal, but I would definitely say have at least 3 months, just in case. And worst case scenario, you're not going to need it for an emergency. I don't know about you, but that's really what prepping comes down to at the end of the day. That's kind of the bottom line when it comes to prepping. Better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. Because if you're someone like me and you don't really like currency and it hurts your soul to have however much cash you need multiplied by, let's just say 3, just sitting there getting nothing done, personally, I hate that. I do it anyway because I understand the importance. I understand that in the event of an emergency, the last thing I would want to do is A, part ways with any of my silver or gold. I don't want to sell anything. I want all that in my possession. I want to keep it in my possession. But B, have to go through the selling process. It's not always the easiest thing in the world. Sure, you could just drive on over to the coin shop and part ways with some silver for some cash. It's not always a difficult process, and in fact, I mean, I've never sold my silver, I guess I wouldn't know, but I would assume it's almost always a very simple process. Very similar to just going to the bank with your debit card, putting it in the ATM, and taking some cash out. Quick and easy transaction. It's really no different than going to the coin shop with some coins and trading it for a little bit of cash. It's pretty much the same thing, but guess what? Want to know what I learned? In 2020, if I absolutely needed to sell my silver and gold at the coin shop, I wouldn't have been able to do so. Coin shop's a small business. You want to know what happened to small businesses in 2020? In case you forgot, they got shut down because they weren't deemed essential, which I never understood because every single business on the planet is essential to the economy. But it is what it is. That was 2 years ago. We don't have to keep bringing that back up. I just wanted to quickly mention it just as an example. Everybody, you know, don't get too comfortable. Don't sit there and be like, oh yeah, my coin shop will never close down. I said the same thing. It's not likely to happen. It probably won't happen again, but it could. It happened once, it could happen again. We saw it take place right in front of our eyes. Which would be a roadblock when it comes to selling. What happens if you're going through an emergency and you don't have any cash? You have $4 just sitting there and be like, oh man, I need $400 to take care of something today. So you go and get yourself $400 worth of silver, you drive on over to the coin shop, and boom, there's a sign on the door, closed until further notice. You drive to the next closest one and it says the same thing. What do you do at that point? You sell it online. But is that a quick and easy process? If you said you need $400 today, you can get $400 easily. But guess what? It would take a couple of days. That online transaction would need to be processed. You would need to physically ship out the silver to whoever it is that's buying it from you. Again, it's not a very difficult task. People do this every single day. It's very, very easy. I've sold a ton of stuff online. Never sold silver and gold online, but I've sold so much stuff online. It's very, very easy, but unfortunately, the payment is not automatic. Well, the payment's automatic, but by the time it processes and actually hits your account, it could take a couple of days. It could take a week. What if you need that cash right now? What if you need that cash by 9 o'clock? What then? Point being is you need to have some cash set aside. It's very, very important, and everybody likes to say, oh yeah, it's not going to happen. I'll get to it. People procrastinate. People procrastinate in life. People procrastinate when it comes to their careers. They procrastinate when it comes to prepping, and they procrastinate when it comes to money, saving, stacking, investing, or just having a little bit of cash set aside. People procrastinate. You don't want to be one of those people. Trust me. I've procrastinated in the past, and it came back to haunt me. I'm the type of person who that's just how I am, I guess. I need to learn things the hard way, unfortunately. I basically smacked myself in the face multiple times before I woke up and said, hey, you know what? I should probably solve this problem. And actually get to it and be active. And be productive. And stay ready so I don't have to get ready. That's what you don't want to do. You don't want there to be an emergency. I mean, you don't want there to ever be an emergency, but you especially don't want there to be an emergency when you're unprepared to take care of that emergency. The average American doesn't even have $500. So even by holding on to $500, not to say that $500 would take care of 3 months worth of expenses, but even if you work your way up to $500, You could pat yourself on the back at that point because you're already doing better than most Americans. And even if you don't have $500 set aside just yet, maybe you're watching this video right now and you didn't really think that far into it, how important it is to have a little bit of currency for short-term emergencies. Even if you have $500 that you've converted into silver over the last couple of months or years or whatever the case may be, even that is already far better than what the average American is doing. Because the average American doesn't have $500 worth of silver. The average American doesn't have $500 worth of gold. The average American doesn't even have $500 worth of cash. The average American cannot afford $500 worth of food, rent, and insurance if their paycheck got taken away. How scary is that? To me, that's horrifying. That's a terrifying thing to imagine. And what we saw take place in 2020 and 2021, we saw people very, very scared. We saw people panicking. But you want to know what we did not see? We did not see desperation. We saw fear. We saw panic. We saw uncertainty. We saw people freaking out and getting into fistfights over toilet paper in Walmart parking lots. But we did not see large-scale desperation. You want to know what large-scale desperation looks like? To me, that could even be something as extreme as cannibalism in the middle of the street because there's no more food at the grocery store and no money, no currency to buy anything. People are going to go absolutely berserk. Will they? I'm not going to say they will because I don't know what the future holds, but if it really came down to it, people are going to go absolutely nuts. And I'm not talking about, a couple crazy people in some viral video. I'm talking about like everybody going into full-on desperation mode. That is something I hope to God, I pray to God we never see. That would be horrible. So just imagine an entire country, an entire planet probably, full of unprepared people, unprepared for an emergency, an actual emergency. Imagine if that actual emergency takes place. We would see full-on desperation. And desperation is something that I hope to God we never see. But back to the silver and the gold, and also back to stacking a little bit of currency and general preparation, something else I've noticed is that by prepping the way that I prep, having the items that I have, the prepping gear and whatnot, these things will help me out quite a bit during an emergency as well. See, that's something that I always considered. Back in 2017, 2018, when I was really getting into stacking and prepping, I started to realize very early on that just by simply prepping the way that I prep, it's almost a way of financial preparation, even without the financial aspect. And by that I mean, if I'm stocking up on, let's just say the food preps, for example. If every single week I go to the store and I just buy one extra canned good and just put it in the pantry, something not to necessarily eat, but something to just store away. Food prepping. What if I do that every week? What if a year goes by and now I have 52 extra cans that I have just for prepping? And then what happens if there's an emergency right then and there? Guess what? The dollar bills that I set aside, or the silver and gold that I set aside, I can use those dollar bills to take care of some emergency. I could, in theory, sell some of my silver and gold if I absolutely needed to, but guess what? I might not have to do that, and I might not have to even dip into the cash, because guess what? I don't need to go running to the store and buy food during an emergency. Why is that? Because I just spent the last year food prepping. See, that's something that a lot of people completely forget about. A lot of people are like, oh, stack the silver, stack the gold just in case, stack the cash just in case. But what about stacking the food just in case? You might not have to stack as much currency if you're taking care of things now that would cost you currency in the future. Stack the food now. I went and got myself a food dehydrator so I can remove the water, the moisture from like fruits and whatnot. Dried out, dehydrated apples and kiwis, bananas, stuff like that. I've dehydrated a ton of different types of fruits, and I have them all packed away in mason jars. Why? So that in the event of an emergency, I don't have to worry about going and buying, fruits and whatnot. I have all of the canned soups, the canned beans. I have, boxes of different types of foods as well, like different types of pastas and whatnot. These things last an incredibly long time. You can look at the top, and it says it's good for like a year and a half. And it's not even an expiration date. It's a best if used by date, which means if you consume it after that date, it should, in theory, still be perfectly okay to eat, just maybe the nutritional value went down a little bit. So I went and got myself a food dehydrator for that reason, just to make things last a little bit longer. Actually, a whole lot longer. It can last as close as forever as possible, depending on how it's stored. As I always say, all of my prepping products are linked in the description if you need a food dehydrator, for example. Or if you need a water purification unit, I use one of those as well. I don't think I'm ever going to have to purchase another bottle, case, or gallon of water ever again. And that's without even having to deal with an emergency. That's one of the first things people do when everybody's freaking out. They run to the store and they buy a bunch of cases of water, and then they get into fights in the parking lot over it. I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about putting somebody in a chokehold over some Poland Spring. I don't have to worry about any of that. I have a water purification unit. I can filter the tap water. And if I really needed to, if it really came down to it, I can filter the rainwater, the river water. It doesn't matter. Because it's not even just a filter, it's a purifier. That will also be linked in the description, all of my prepping products. The portable power station, in the event that the power goes out for an extended period of time, I can use the power station to keep myself up and running. And I can charge it with solar panels, so I don't even need to worry about, oh no, how am I going to charge it now that the power is out? How am I going to charge the power station? You can charge it with solar panels. That will also be linked in the description. A portable fire pit and cooking stove that I use as well, linked in the description. All of the prepping products and all of the stacking supplies, they're all linked in the description. Amazon affiliate links. And by the way, it is March 30th. They're all being removed from the description at the end of the month. This is your last chance to use any of those links. Come April, I'm taking them all out of the description from here on out. So use those links while you can. I've been talking about these products for years and years and years. There's no reason in the world for people to be like, oh, I don't know what you use. I don't know what products to get. I've talked about them for years. But coming around full circle, if you're preparing yourself in more ways than just financial preparation, you might not have to dip into your financial preps to take care of things that you need to take care of. If you get the supplies now, when all these situations are off of everybody's radar, right now, people are not worried. People are not fearful. People are not freaking out. People are not going into panic mode. People are perfectly okay right now. And that's the perfect time to prepare. You don't want to wait until we see a worldwide state of panic to start figuring out, oh, how can I start preparing? Maybe now's a good time to start stacking. Maybe now's a good time to start food prepping when there's no food left at the grocery store. Yeah, that's a great time. You got to start prepping now. And you can set a little bit of cash aside for short-term emergencies. Of course, general preparation can save you from having to dip into the cash, but it's good to have some cash anyway. It's good to have enough cash to make sure you're going to be able to keep a roof over your head. Buy some food if need be. The food preps will only last you so long. Take care of the car. Take care of insurance. Pay for your phone. Pay for whatever else that you need to pay for. It's good to have a little bit of cash set aside. And like I said before, I'd say 3 to 6 months is probably a rock solid amount of cash that you need set aside. And also, like I said before, it varies person to person. So I can't say, oh, you need to have $1,000. You need to have $5,000. I can't give you a dollar amount because it varies person to person. But use the calculation. Figure out all of your mandatory, necessary expenses and multiply it by 3 or potentially 3 to 6. That should give you a rough idea of how much cash you should have set aside. And once you have that amount of cash set aside, if you want to, you can decide to double it Let's just say it's $4,000. Like, all right, I got $4,000. This is what I would, in theory, need to take care of the next 3 months if something were to go south. Now let's do another $4,000, this time into silver. Once you hit $4,000 into silver, you could, in theory, say to yourself, all right, this time around, let's do $4,000 into gold, if that's what you want to do. Again, I think it's all important. All the different types of preps, Amazon affiliate links in the description. That's good for one reason. Having a little bit of cash set aside, that's good for another reason. Having the silver and gold stacked up to the roof, that's good for another reason, in my opinion at least. But I want you guys to head on down to the comments and let me know, would you rely on silver and gold for a short-term emergency, completely neglecting the cash? Would you feel confident in spot price for short-term emergencies? Or do you do what I do? You prioritize the silver and gold, but you keep a little bit of cash on the sidelines as well. And then, of course, when it comes to other forms of prepping as well, that could prevent you from having to dip into the cash or dip into the silver and gold. How are you going about doing so? How are you going about prepping? Head on down to the comments and let me know. If you guys liked today's video, please hit that like button. Subscribe if you're new. Subscribe to my second channel, which is my backup channel for weekly videos. Go and get yourself some DYDSS merchandise to help support the channel in the biggest possible way. We got t-shirts, hoodies, stickers, coffee mugs in a bunch of different designs, and a lot of the products are raising a little bit of funds and awareness for different charity organizations, by the way. DYDSS store will be linked in the description. Come and join us in the Precious Metals VIP Club, which is where I do giveaways every single month. I have one going on right now. Join before April 1st if you want to get entered. You have 1 day left. I do live streams multiple times a week. I'm actually going live tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come hang out. Deal alerts on silver and gold almost every single day. You can watch all of my videos early and commercial free. Every Saturday morning I post a brand new vlog, and there are a ton of other perks as well. I guarantee you the value exceeds the cost. VIP Club link in the description. And of course, last but certainly not least, make sure to go and get your 5 free stocks by downloading Webull and funding your account. Usually it's 2 free stocks. They bumped it up to 5 for this month. You have 1 day left. If you refer 1 friend by the end of the month, Webull's going to give you 10 free stocks for the referral. It's part of their advertising budget. Rather than wasting currency on billboards and TV commercials, they reward the users for helping them build their app with them. You have 1 day left. And if you refer 3 friends by the end of the month, Webull's going to give you a spin on the spin wheel, which guarantees you at least 1 free share of Apple, worth about $170 right now, guaranteed, with the possibility of winning 2, 3, 5, 7, maybe even 10 free shares of Apple, each worth about $170 right now. If you don't want the stocks, go and get them anyway, sell them, congratulations. Now you have some cash to sit on the sidelines, or some cash to go and get you some silver and gold if that's what you want. You have 1 day left. Webull link in the description. Time is running out. And I want you guys to head on down to the comments and let me know once again, what are your thoughts on everything shared in today's video? When it comes to relying on or leaning on the precious metals for any short-term emergency, is that something that you're confident about? Is that something that you're comfortable with? Is that something that you'd be willing to rely on? The spot price that constantly fluctuates? To me, it doesn't seem like a good idea for the short term, but in my opinion, it seems like a fantastic idea for the long term. So head on down to the comments and let me know your thoughts on that right there, and whether or not you have maybe 1 to 3 to 6 months worth of cash set aside just in case, as well as general preparation. Head on down to the comments and let me know anything and everything related to today's video topic. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you tomorrow. Don't you dare stop smiling. Peace.